What's up, Diablo 4 players? So, with the most recent campfire and the official Blizzard blog post, we actually now know what's going to be some of the best classes to play in Season 4. So, I don't want to waste any time. I want to go ahead and hop right into it. So, right here, I put a red underline on basically what has gotten changed / buffed, nerfed, what has actually got updated in the most recent patch via the Blizzard official news website. So, starting right off, what are going to be some of the best builds in the game? So, for sure, summoning Necromancer is going to be really good. I'm going to show you guys some gameplay in the background here. And while summoning Necromancer actually has some of the highest damage in the game right now because a lot of other top builds just took a nerf, the reason why Necromancer is going to be what I would consider A tier versus S tier is simply the speed at which the Necromancer clears content. When I show you guys the gameplay of the Teleport or the Frosty Strides build, you're going to see a massive difference in the clear speed in terms of what you can do with the character. But I want to go ahead and show you guys basically the tier list, and I'm going to go ahead and mention kind of what has changed here. But I want to start off the video by saying, if you're interested in any sort of build in Diablo 4, whether that's the Pulverized Druid or the Tornado throwing Druid, there are so many builds in the game. Maybe you like Twisting Blades. Any build is going to be able to dominate open world content. So if you've got a favorite build in the game, every single build would be getting stronger with not only greater affixes, which gives you a 1.5 times multiplier, but on top of that, you can masterwork items to get even more stats, and you can get tempering stats to basically give you a chance to activate your skill basically twice. So you're going to get so much more damage in the game. But if you are interested in doing the hardest games endgame content, which would be considered the pit, or maybe you want to do some speed runs in the gauntlet, there are definitely going to be winners and losers. However, it's not that big of a deal for majority of players. So I want to go ahead and start off the video by saying, if you're interested in any sort of build, don't worry about it. You can have an absolute blast playing every single class. But I want to go ahead and go over kind of what has changed, because this is the more recent updated tier list, and this is the older one as things have kind of changed. So starting right off, some of the builds that no longer function that were originally on the PTR, I want to go over this because I've made videos, other content creators have made videos about things that existed in the game on the PTR, but these don't work anymore. So I want to cover this real quick. So starting right off, the Hurricane Druid no longer functions, like in terms of like getting billions and billions of damage. Shadow Blight Necromancer, that doesn't work anymore. We kind of expected that to happen. The Frosty Strides Sorceress actually kind of skipped out. You could use Arc Lash and Teleport, and you basically would use Frosty Strides. I'll show you guys gameplay in a minute. That is going to be one of the top builds in the game. And then on top of that, the Dust Devil Barbarian, so that's going to be the Double Swing or the Whirlwind Barbarian. That actually took a few nerfs in multiple different departments. It's still one of the better builds, but I'm going to move that down a tier. And then the Frozen Orb Sorceress actually got nerfed as well. The Fractured Winterglass, that's the brand new unique amulet. And then Necromancer didn't really get any changes here. And in fact, Necromancer is going to be one of the strongest classes, especially if you're interested in maybe doing bossing. They also nerfed Rogue a little bit, strangely enough, and Rogue was already kind of one of the worst things in the game anyways. As far as the Firewall Sorceress, they did buff it up. So how it works is you throw the firewall down, and then you would shoot the fire bolts, and you make them go through. You used to be able to stack multiple firewalls, and it would get crazy in terms of damage. That no longer works. And then I have like this bait tier. Like if you've wanted to try this Summon Pet Barbarian, it is absolutely terrible. I have the gameplay. I'll make a video eventually, but don't build it. I promise you it's not worth the time investment on that. So this is kind of like the updated list over here. Again, these are kind of the changes, and I put not enough testing in 2 of the other categories because there could be some sort of broken thing with them. Someone may figure something out. If you guys have played Diablo 4, you know pretty much most of the time when we find the best build in the game, it's some sort of bug thing with like Tibalts or Ball Lightning. There's so many bug things in the game. Heck, Twisting Blades was so busted for so dang long, especially with like Poison and Imbue. A lot of things just weren't working properly in the game. There's also another category right here where I have just an aspect. There was some sort of flat damage. They showed this off in the campfire chat of it basically getting divided by 20 in terms of its damage. Now, I don't want to sign this thing completely off because what they showed off didn't actually specify the rarity on it. If they are making it divided by 20, then it's pretty much just remove it from this entire list. But if that is like the lowest tier one, and this is something that can actually roll higher because the tempering affixes can be rolled to be even higher, And on top of that, the Tempering Affix has a rarity of like normal, magic, and legendary. So if those numbers are going to be even half of what it used to be, I think it could still be a very viable build, but I'm going to kind of take that one with a grain of salt here. So you guys are seeing, again, the Necromancer in the gameplay for the background, but I want to go and highlight some of the other classes gameplay over here that are like the S tier, the best ones, and give you guys like a build guide. I already have my Necromancer build guide. If you guys want to see that, I will also have a bunch of my other builds pinned. But the brand new Lilith is an absolute joke for the Necromancer. If you guys want the best boss killer, Necromancer is probably going to be one of the best ones. This is the new rework Lilith. Look at this. We just killed her in basically 1 second. As soon as she came out, we activated her buffs. Instant deletion, and it's super easy to set up. All you need to do is activate your ultimate. It's not like if you played my one-shot rogue build that was really popular in season like 2 and 3, that actually requires a lot of setup, right? You have to get like this thing to match up. You have to be on your max stacks of precision. You have to activate your Banished Lord's Talisman. Like there's so many steps, whereas this, you literally just push your ultimate button and you win. Like it's so easy. But there are other builds that I want to go and highlight. So this one, I will also link these down below because I want to credit to obviously the creators here. So it's another fellow Diablo partner, Rob. This is the brand new Bash Barbarian. So the reason why I'm considering these ones in the S tier, like the Necromancer is probably S tier in damage, but if we look at the speed at which the Necromancer clears content, it's nowhere near what I'm about to show you. So the Bash Barbarian does have to activate something else to kind of proc the damage, but it's so much faster than Necromancer, and that's because Barbarian is just one of the fastest classes in the game, especially when you consider the leaderboards for any of the Nightmare Dungeon like world records, because I was competing for a while in Season 2, and we actually had a bunch of records. You had to play the Sorceress, Rogue, or the Barbarian. The Necromancer, Druid, they just could not compete because they simply just don't have the movement speed and some of the mobility to have the ability to compete. So if we're talking about like best of the best, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a difference here. But yeah, Bash does crazy amounts of damage, and it's really, really strong in the game. You just need to get Pin Gorge or Gauntlets. But the Frosty Strides over here is actually probably what I would consider the best build in the entire game. If I had to like pick which build is the best, and I was checking out the notes, there's nothing that got changed with this. So there's a few different ways that you can play it. You can basically teleport and just spam Frosty Strides, and you can run Flame Shield, and there's an aspect that you can throw on that did get a nerf, which you can keep Flame Shield up basically 100% of the time, and which means you take no damage and you will basically delete stuff. This is max level pit. They are adjusting the pit to go beyond level like 200 for the monster levels, but we don't know what the highest number is at the moment. But to give you guys the best info, I'm just gonna let you guys know that, but it was deleting everything instantly in the game, and on top of that, you have immortality. So that pretty much makes it the best build in the game. So now that we kind of see this over here, I want to go ahead and kind of go over what I would consider as far as most of the classes here. So this is where I would put the classes if I had to make like kind of a tier list on the classes. Now that we've kind of went over the skills, the class as far as the tier list goes, the Sorceress is definitely in the S tier. Again, as long as Frosty Strides does not get changed, I checked it out, they didn't change Frosty Strides, so it's looking like it is pretty much going to be the best class in the game in terms of a build, if it still functions the way it does, which again, there was no notes on it, and I expected that to be nerfed. But that would be pretty much one of the best things in the game. As far as Barbarian goes, I would put it in like it's like so close to the A tier. As far as Druid goes, I would put Druid in like the good. Like the Tornadoes are pretty good for bosses, but if you compare that to, again, Frosty Strides, I mean, we're looking at like terrible. I'm not sure why Rogue is one of the worst classes in the game, and they actually nerfed the Beastfall boots. This is another thing that I don't think a lot of content creators were talking about, whereas like, okay, the Rogue is maybe not that great in the game as far as like higher level pit, and the reason why is they just simply die too fast. They nerfed the Immortal Rogue build, which I get it, that you had 100% chance to dodge, so that got nerfed. So like the Rogue was originally like, I would have put in like, okay, it's in the good category because you can still one-shot all the bosses, and then on top of that, you can become immortal, so like it had to play. But if you remove the immortal, I put it in like the C tier, but then they also decided to nerf Beastfall boots, which is what allows you to one-shot things. However, we did get a small new change with the most recent update, which actually did buff the Scoundrels Kiss. You guys are seeing the brand new rapid fire rogue in the background here, and that essentially is a brand new skill. Now there's an update to it where all of the shots will be more concentrated in versus having this kind of explosion in a line. So that is arguably a buff against some of the bosses, but it is a nerf in the clear speed. And while I want to say that the best clear speed build will definitely be something related to, let's say, a penetrating shot, because that just deletes everything as it goes along, you can kind of make a hybrid build, and that would be good for, let's say, open world content. There is, however, some temperings that you can do on the ring, which allow you to have even more stacks of your imbuements, which could lead to a little bit better of a build. So while I want to say that the initial look on Rogue is probably objectively the worst class in the game, right? If you were to ask me what class do I think is the worst and I have to pick a class, I would definitely say Rogue. Now, if you do happen to run a bunch of imbuements and you min-max pretty hard on it, we also had a nerf to the close quarters key passive that was a massive nerf. They cut it down. It used to be like 40%, and now it's only like 10% of your damage to crowd control. And the problem with that is a lot of the bosses in the game, they're not going to be crowd controlled because you have to build up that stagger bar. However, again, with the new tempering system, you can get even more stacks of whatever is getting imbued, and you can run a cold imbue and actually ramp that up quite fast. But when there's builds out there that can just like one-shot instant delete things, is that really going to be something to try to build up? And you're going to have to spend, maybe 10 seconds to build up that stagger bar, and then you can finally deal good damage. It almost reminds me of the Sorceress back in Season 0. So if I had to pick a class here where, on paper, Rogue is actually quite bad, especially since they are squishy, and it got surprisingly nerfs where I expected it to get buffs. I would say you can make it good, but you're gonna need a lot more investment in the character. But if I had to kind of place it here, I'd probably put it what I would consider in the C or maybe in the B tier if you're really willing to put in some of the time and get some of those uber uniques so you can actually make the character good. It just requires so many things to be so good in order for the Rogue to be anywhere near some of the other classes, especially when you look at the class specialization where we're getting, okay, we can get 25% extra like crit chance once the inner sight is now maxed out, and combo points just takes too long to get realistic damage in. And again, if you want to do insane amounts of damage, the Necromancer is just superior because it doesn't have to go ahead and build up all these things, make sure to balls, probably go ahead and do a little dodge roll so rapid fire can hit for more. So honestly, I would say Rogue is kind of the weakest classes out of all of them. And then mentioning Necromancer now, as far as Necromancer goes, it's a very good class. It probably has one of the highest DPS tiers. But again, Necromancer cannot teleport across the map, can't teleport through walls. The speed at which Necromancer does things is definitely going to be behind. So I would say this is probably objectively a relatively decent tier list in most people's eyes. However, if you're on more of a casual playstyle, I'd say the Rogue is kind of just in like the C tier. It's probably the weakest class in the game, and hopefully with this feedback, they can maybe buff it and maybe some sort of mid-season patch. But again, if you are just doing like the open world content, every single class is good. Don't worry about it at all. So I have a lot more gameplay of basically everything. If you guys want to see more of the gameplay of any of the things we talked about, go ahead and check the pinned. I have gameplay of the Frozen Orb Sorceress. I have the build guide for you, and most people will probably not be interested in doing Frosty Shrines and or the Teleport Sorceress. The Teleport Sorceress is something that I want to work on because you get like plus 50 plus skills into it, but it's going to be only for the 1% of the 1%ers, and the reason why is because a lot of people don't like playing low life builds. They don't like getting like perfect gear, and so what I would say is probably going to be the go-to for most people is they want to play the Sorceress and they want to play the Frozen Orb build. This build is amazing. You get so many Frozen Orbs to shoot her out. Keep in mind, it is getting nerfed, but it's a very small nerf, and then most people will probably be interested in the Double Swing Barbarian. The Bash Barb, it's a basic skill, but it is objectively very, very strong, but most people will be probably interested in playing the Dust Devils, which I can easily highly recommend. It is such a fun build. But again, I played pretty much everything on the PTR, but I didn't get a chance to play some of the more like obscure ones like the Bash Barb. But I'll leave those builds in the pin because I want to give a shout out to the content creator like Rob and the other person that uploaded the Frosty Shreds, which is Accrued. But anyways, let me know, guys, what you plan to play in Season 4. So again, just to go over a recap of pretty much the best builds that you want to actually play. Use this kind of as a little bit of a reference guide, but there could be some sort of crazier thing that we see later down the line that's a bugged build, because that's just kind of the way that Diablo 4 works. So if I was to say what is the best class, the Sorceress and Barbarian do have quite a bit of options, but if you're interested in playing the Necromancer, that is an absolute S tier damage build. Excellent boss killer. It's just it doesn't move as fast as the other builds, and that's why I have to objectively put it in the A tier. But again, if you're just looking to do open world, play whatever you want to play. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up things. Let me know what you plan to play at the start of Season 4. I'm still debating on Sorceress, but there is some potential for some other builds in the game that could be pretty insane that we'll talk about when the season launches, because I have to test out some other weird, obscure things. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn on the bell so you don't miss out when we cover the other updated build guides, but I have a bunch that I'll link down below already so you guys can kind of plan and get started, because remember, there is no seasonal power mechanic to get yourself to be even stronger. So you could basically test out everything and get everything ready on Eternal, and when the new season launches, all you gotta do is pick up the weapons and start tempering and stuff, and you'll have all of your crafting materials. I think a lot of people will be interested in actually playing the Eternal realm because, well, there's simply no seasonal power that we gain. Anyways, take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.